Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Empowered Women in Business International Radio. I'm your host, Taylor K on the mic, and I have two phenomenal guests in our virtual studio that I can't wait to introduce you to. But first, like always, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Empowered Women in Business International. We serve a sisterhood of women entrepreneurs who understand that individually you can do great things, but collectively we can forever change the world. Members of our movement experience a support system that allows them to celebrate their wins and share their struggles in a series of opportunities that enhance them personally and professionally. So, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, you can visit us at our website at www.ewbiradio.org. Again, that's www.ewbiradio.org. Next up is our quote of the day. And our quote of the day is often it's your deepest pain which empowers you to grow into your highest self. Often it's our deepest pain which empowers you to grow into your highest self by Karen Salmonson. Or I apologize in advance if I jacked up her last name. Did you all want to weigh in on our quote of the day? I just felt like it kind of really resonated with what we're going to talk about a little bit today.
Yes.
Sure. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So I think that the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about just power and pain and the things that we go through, I think the first thing that lends to resilience. And there's a natural resilience that we have, but I think that we have to get to a point where we're kind of pushing past that natural resilience, and then when we're able to push past that natural resilience, gird ourselves up, make ourselves as strong as we can possibly be, then we're able to pour that into others. So I think the first thing that comes to mind again is that natural resilience. Another thing that comes to mind is just facing the pains that we're dealing with, understanding that there is an other side to the pain. And when we're able to kind of, again, gird that up, take that strength, that resilience, push past it, and be our optimum selves, then again, it lends to being able to help others out as much as possible. But again, it starts with facing our own pain, facing our own demons, healing from those things, and then we're able to kind of push that into others.
And I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the reality of the matter is that when we experience these difficulties, these pains, these obstacles, these setbacks and situations, we can learn from them, become better with them, and then help others either avoid them or demonstrate to them how to get over them. But the first thing we have to recognize is that these are just commas in our lives and not periods. So it shouldn't stop us. Unfortunately, if we don't understand that and if we don't deliver that message to our young people and those younger than us in those difficult situations, those painful days, they won't even get past that to get to a better place if they understand that this is just part of an obstacle on a road to bigger and better things. And then some of us who even help the young people um, have to come to understand that too, that we need help and that we also carry some burden, some pain with us, and that if we don't either use it, turn anger into energy, or turn that pain into something positive, then it will burden us and hold us down. We won't even be able to help ourselves, and we certainly won't be able to help anyone else. So that's an excellent quote. I think it needs to be repeated over and over again, and clearly it needs to be explained because everyone who lives on God's earth is going to experience some pain at some point. It's how you handle it, how you deal with it, and how you're taught to deal with it that will allow us to have better lives and help others.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys for chiming in on that. So for our audience, we have some phenomenal heavy hitters in the studio, virtual studio with us today. We have Dr. Tyrone Powers and Sananda Edwards of Above It All. Did I get that right?
That's it.
Oh.
Yes.
um, So if we could start with Dr. Powers, if you could just share a little bit about yourself with our audience, and then we'll go to Sananda, and then we'll get started.
Well, I was just to keep it simple. I was born and reared here in Baltimore City. Graduated from Southwestern High School, which doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of an embarrassing because I don't get to go to class reunions because we don't have a school. I guess we could just gather outside where the building used to be. But then I completed school and then went to Coppin State University. I have my undergraduate degree in criminal justice from there. Was with the Maryland State Police for a number of years, left there and joined the FBI, earned a master's in public administration and management from the University of Cincinnati. And then after a career with the Federal Bureau of Investigation as a special agent, I came back here, finished up my PhD at American University over in Washington, D.C., served for a period of time as the director of the Homeland Security and Criminal Justice Institute at Anne Arundel Community College, as well as an adjunct at Coppin and at American University and at Bowie State University. And now I am the director of collaboration and special initiatives. Started two organizations with another group of other people here in Baltimore, the People's Plan to Dramatically Reduce Crime, and also the Children's First Movement, in which we try to deal with the issues facing our young people or facing all people in Baltimore City today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Sananda.
Wow. Thanks again, Nikki, first of all, for having us on. It is a pleasure to be here with Dr. Powers. Just knowing all the amazing things that he's done in Baltimore and beyond is absolutely incredible. I'm humbled and honored to share the microphone with you, Dr. Powers. Just as Dr. Powers is, born and raised here in Baltimore. I had the honor of graduating from what I call the best high school on the planet, Baltimore City College. So all that that you don't get to celebrate, Dr. Powers, I make sure I celebrate enough for the both of us during our City Poly Week. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that this year, but that's okay. I'll make sure we start up again next year. Again, graduate of City College, went on to Morgan to get my undergrad degree in English. Came out of college, did some teaching with Baltimore City Public Schools for a little while in elementary, kindergarten, and fourth grade. Then went on to get my master's at the University of Baltimore, Human Services Administration with a concentration in family counseling, which led me to work with a lot of just program development, things of that nature. Finally, decided to start my own program, which is called, again, Above It All. It is a mental health agency. We work with young people ages 6 to 17, just kind of working through their issues. We know that mental health is extremely important. It has been for a while. We are trying to kind of bring more awareness to that, because sometimes we can kind of, again, we talk about resilience and having that natural resilience that Blacks have. We have that, right? But we have to kind of learn to build a personal blueprint that will allow for our young people to have the success for themselves, for their families, in the community. In addition, I'm a mental health advocate. I'm an author of a book called The Extraordinary Mr. Nobody, A Beginner's Guide to Self-Healing, which basically uses my life as a backdrop to help others kind of do some soul searching, kind of see some things that maybe they would have done a little bit differently than me, and then again get on their own personal path to healing. The book is available on Amazon, but I've actually been picked up by a publisher. Very proud of that. And it's actually in the process of being re-released over the next couple months. So I'm really excited about that. But mental health advocacy is pretty much my forte. And again, that quote that you said earlier about pain really resonates, because again, the resilience that we have to build up in ourselves is necessary. But again, we have to take care of ourselves. I think Dr. Powers kind of mentioned that. We have to take care of ourselves. Self-care is so vitally important. That's something that I push as a mental health advocate.
Well, thank you very much. And it is an honor to be here with Dr. Powers, but I think it's an honor to be here with me as well.
But see, that goes without saying. That goes without saying.
You invited us on, so obviously the honor and privilege is valid to even be here with you.
Could not agree more.
Anybody who knows us, we know that we like to have a good time. So
yeah, there's no. I say to people all the time, and I really mean this, in order to do the work we do to help people on a daily basis, you have to be able to laugh and learn at the same time. I say that to my students. I said that they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to walk around with a jailhouse face all the time as you help people, as you confront the issues that confront us. Laughter is medicine in and of itself. And if you can do the work, be serious about the work, and at the same time laugh and not take yourself too serious, enjoy the people around you, enjoy the journey. This is a gift of life from God Almighty.
Amen.
So if someone gives you a gift, you are supposed to enjoy it, even as you do the work that God has given you as a mission and as a purpose and as a passion. You're still supposed to get some joy out of things. God didn't put us here to walk around angry all the time. We have to help others, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't laugh and learn. And so as you know, I do a lot of laughing, even as we do a lot of work all over the country. I don't take myself too serious. My grandmother once said to me when I earned my PhD, and I was having a conversation with her and trying to demonstrate my brilliance because I earned my PhD, and she said, "Well, son, you need to just reach down and get that what you dropped on the floor in front of you." I said, "I didn't drop anything, Grandma." "Yeah." She said, "You dropped your common sense." She said, you're not supposed to pick up education and drop your common sense. You're supposed to have your humor, your common sense, your education, your intelligence, and your ability to feel and help others all in the same package. If you drop any one of them, then you become a subject of some mental health issues yourself.
Very
That's
true.
right.
Wow.
Right.
Amen.
So true. So true. So, how do you think let's go to, we'll discuss a little bit about what's going on in our communities and in Baltimore specifically. How do you think the consent decree implementation is going? What has worked, what hasn't, and what are the things that the consent decree monitors or the city officials can approve upon?
A couple of things there. First of all, there's this misinformation that the consent decree somehow stops police from effectively policing. The consent decree demands constitutional policing, it demands that policing be done the right way. So the consent decree, constitutional policing and effective policing, dramatically reducing crime, dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, are not mutually exclusive. They both can take place. But it's an easy excuse for someone to say, well, the consent decree is preventing us from reducing crime, preventing us from dealing with certain issues. And that's usually what the language we get from some politicians, some people in the community, and certainly the Fraternal Order of Police or the FOP, when nothing could be further from the truth. And the reason they are able to constantly put this out there is because they think that they're talking to people who don't know better. They're saying to us, either we police you aggressively, as the slave patrols did on the slave plantations. That's what keep you in control. But that's also what kept us in slavery. So they say either you allow us to aggressively police you, or you're going to have crime in your community. And that's poor leadership from the police, from the city hall, and from every place else, if we accept that to be the truth. Right now, obviously, we have a really difficult situation in Baltimore. We have murders taking place on a regular basis, and it really impacts the people who live in those communities, who hear those gunshots every single night. Baltimore, the total of Baltimore is not experiencing this murder as certain communities are. Let's be realistic about that. But for those communities, this is a horrific situation. This is like being in a war zone. And for police departments, or for our police department to say, well, the police can't do it, we can't reduce crime, doesn't give people comfort. Because if I'm a quarterback on a football team and I come to you and say, well, I can't throw the ball, then I get cut. Only in policing do you get to say we can't reduce crime, but keep us on the job anyway. It's somebody else's fault. Only are people who have been miseducated, misdirected, and socialized wrong would accept that as a particular excuse. Fact of the matter is, we've had like 13 police commissioners in 7 or 8 years. You can't change leadership that often and have effective leadership. We've had people in political positions and office who didn't understand how to reduce crime, and so police commissioners were able to come to them and give them any excuse or any reason for the lack of reduction in crime. Not to mention the other issues that I'm sure we're going to get into: the systemic racism that we deal with, the bad schools, the miseducation that takes place. And at some point, we have to own that. We talked about before, getting through your pain. Your opening quote is so appropriate for this particular program. Getting through your pain. At some point, we have to say that we are people of color. We are in the mayor's position. We're the state's attorney. We are the head of the school system. We are the head of public housing. To an extent, we're the head of the Department of Public Works. We're the head of every major department in the city. And so, if we have that power in those positions, we can no longer say we can't get this under control. It's bigger than us. It's systemic racism. Yes, it's all those things. But you knew that before you took positions of power. So the question now that the people who are suffering the most, the people who live in neighborhoods, who have to deal with the violence and the drug dealing, and mothers who have to wonder if their children are going to come back home, children who are so miseducated that they lose hope and believe that the only way that they can gain notoriety in this particular world is by doing something violent because at least they make the news. Young people who believe that it's better to be a murderer than to be a nothing because no human being, the psyche doesn't allow for a human being to live like an insect, to fly around, to reproduce, and then die. So they'd rather be a bad something than to be a nothing. And so they are better a murderer or a rapist or a robber because at least they get media attention. And all of those things we should understand because we're in positions of power throughout this particular city. So the solutions to our problems in this city, which could be an example to all other cities, are within us. And we're powerful enough to change that. We have 2,000 churches in Baltimore City, 2,000 churches, 2,000 liquor stores. You know, they call liquor spirits. It seems like the spirits coming out the liquor stores are beating the spirits coming out the church. And it's not because of a lack of our ability, it's a lack of our particular will. So I think we can dramatically reduce crime. It is problematic. I think there's specific strategies that we could put in place starting tonight or tomorrow that I hope we get into and talk about. There's specific things that everyone can do and be involved in. But what we can't do is consistently accept or allow others to bring excuses to us as to why they can't do something. If our children did that to us, if everything we told them, get your homework done, get your chores done, if everything we asked of them they had an excuse for, we would lose our minds. But somehow we accept that when we come to leadership in Baltimore City, that all of it looks like us. In 2020, all of that leadership looks like us. So any excuse we have, we know we got racism. We know we got all those other issues. But people want solutions, not excuses, and not talk
That's
about
my issues when it comes to election time. I don't want to hear what you're going to do. If you're running for office, you should have already started doing something in your community.
That's correct.
You should already be able to say, I've done this, this, and this. Not this is what I'm going to do when I become elected, because then at that point, you got a deaf ear from me because you don't have to be in office to make positive change within your community.
Right.
So even if it's something on a micro level, you can still affect and be able to help change. So we as a people, you're right, have to wake up and hold people accountable. If we put them in office and they're not doing their job, then guess what? They need to leave.
No doubt.
That's so true. I think about just in thinking about the consent decree, I really think about, you know how when you put a document together, the spirit of it, we talk about the spirit of it is amazing. It sounds good, when you talk about bringing in the community, making sure that relationships in the community are formed and fortified and utilized. But then I think about what you just said, Nikki, and you talked about like people who are running for offices should already be in the community, and it seems like those should be in the community. They should be working hard. They should be forging those relationships as well. And when you have a police department that hopefully is going by the consent decree and forging and fortifying those relationships in the community, then you should be seeing the same faces on the regular basis, making sure that the community is getting stronger, making sure that the people in the community actually have a voice, and that it's just an extension. We always talk about back in the day. I remember back in the day, officer friendly, coming to schools and things and things of that nature. We remember those things. But even though the days and times are different, we still need to be about relationship building. And it starts with the police officers being about relationship building. And it starts with those who are running for office, ensuring that they are continuing to do everything that they have to do to make a name for themselves, again, fortify those relationships. And then it just doesn't stop on election day. Okay, you haven't become the mayor. Are you going to continue to work in the community? Are you going to continue to build up again, we talk about that resilience in our communities, within ourselves, within our families, and things of that nature. So again, in thinking about the consent decree, it sounds good as far as the letter of the law, but are we really going to press to ensure that we are fortifying those relationships, forging those relationships, utilizing the community for what they're good for, and making sure that that everyone is doing everything that they have to do to ensure that Baltimore gets better? Because things can look dire, but we know that that Baltimore, again, I use this word a billion times: resilience, resilience, resilience. We have a resilient city, but sometimes it can be disheartening. So we have to push ourselves to do everything that we can to join with one another, fortify one another, and then the community can kind of
Exactly.
shine in that way.
One of our motto for EWBI is adopted quote from Nick Mosby, and it's individually we can do great things, but collectively we can forever change the world. And the faster that we understand that let's work together, we can be in different departments, but we can still come together to work to for the common goal of a better city for Baltimore. You know, I decided my husband and I could have went anywhere to rear our children, but we decided to stay here in Baltimore City, and I wanted to help to affect it in a positive way, and you know, to do my part. And I think a lot of people kind of sit back and they listen and they talk negative, but they're not doing anything to help it to change. You know, we can do things in different ways. You know, if you go out and vote, if you even call someone and just tell them about some of the good things that's happening in Baltimore City. Like all three of us are products of Baltimore City. We're not products of anywhere else but Baltimore City. So there is a lot of good with Baltimore City. It's just a matter of us being able to get that word out. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this show today. Not only to focus on the issues, but to highlight you gentlemen because of the different work that you're doing. You know, you in criminal justice, Dr. Powers, and then you, Tasanda, and I'm sorry, Sananda, in mental health are doing positive things, but we don't see you on the news as frequent as we see our gentlemen going to jail. You know, and that's a problem. You know, when I'm watching the news, sometimes I already know the color of the person. If you don't see a picture, you already know the color of the person because they don't want them to be seen. But then the minute you know they can put up a 15-year-old boy real quick or 18-year-old male real quick. But you know, so like just getting, you know, we got to have these discussions so that we can, you know, change it. But I'm going a little off topic, so I'm gonna get back on.
I think
I think
I think what
I
you
agree.
said is really relevant. And the thing we have to consistently remember is that the changes that took place to get us free from slavery during the civil rights movement, none of that was televised. I think Gil Scott Heron wrote a song called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised" because the very people who would put the information out there on television are the very people who don't necessarily want to see us advance.
Mm-hmm.
Television networks, whether they're ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, are all for-profit organizations. Somehow, and
Mhm.
sometimes people think that they are non-profit organizations, like they have a greater cause of bringing us the facts and delivering the facts to us and helping us in our communities. But their objective is to make money. Make no doubt about it. None of the news agencies are non-profit except for PBS or National Public Radio. Short of that, any other news you listen to, remember they prioritize their stories by what they think are going to bring the advertisers in, which they think are going to give us profit. And unfortunately, advertisers believe that if it bleeds, it leads. If people are dying, that people want to watch that, that people want to watch that. They want the news to be like a Netflix movie, to be quite frank with you. So we have to understand that. So we can't expect much more for them unless we have a stronghold on black media. And if we can't, then we got to win anyway because can't necessarily take over the television networks, but we can do the work and try to change the education and the thought process and the vision about people in this particular city. And again, a lot of it's going to depend on leadership because if leadership understands that, unfortunately, not everyone is a Nick Mosby. Not everyone is a reader as well as a leader. Sometimes we elect people because they're popular, because they sound good, and they haven't read a book since Green Eggs and Ham. And so somehow
Mhm.
we expect them to be able to all of a sudden, just because they're in a position to be intelligent, brilliant, and strategic enough to change our condition simply because they were elected. And now we have to ask people, as you said so brilliantly, Nikki, before they get elected. See, I couldn't be a wide receiver in the NFL until I proved myself at Powell, at high school, at college. Then I might get drafted. But the first thing they want to know is what's your statistics? How many times you been hurt? How many times you complain? They make me go through a physical, have to go to the NFL combine and run the 40. But when we put people in office, we don't ask any of that of them. We ask more of an individual who's going on a sports field for him or herself to advance their individual self than we ask a person who wants to become city council president or city council member or mayor. What is your resume? What makes you qualify for this particular position? And then when we get bad results, like we're getting in many cases in certain areas of Baltimore City, we say we don't understand it. What are we doing wrong? How do we get better? And it starts with the fact that, are you making sure that the people who you're put in position are qualified to lead, qualified to change things, are in touch with the people, have a feel for the community? Years ago, when we did the People's Plan to dramatically reduce crime in Baltimore City, we went to the people, because the best people to come up with solutions are the people in the community suffering with these things. Secondly, if people know that you're listening to them, let's say that if you go down to West Baltimore and you ask the people there in the church, what solution would you come up with? And they offer a solution. If you put that solution in your crime reduction plan, then they are invested in making sure it's successful. Because if it's not successful, they're gonna say, "Oh, I suggested that, and it went to hell," right? You want them to say, "I need that to succeed, so I'm gonna work in my community. If no other solution in that plan succeeds, that one's gonna succeed." So often we have been condescending and paternalistic, telling the people what's best for them, while instead of working with them. And nobody, what if in your marriage, if your husband was telling you all the time what's best for you and never asking your opinion, I got a feeling you'd be divorced by now. You understand what I'm saying? So if we know in our personal lives that don't work, how do we think it's going to work in a city full of people who say, "You never listen to us, you just come to us and tell us what to do"? You are modern day slave masters, and somehow you expect us to accept you as leaders. Simply because of that. Hell, they questioned Moses in the Bible.
That's right.
Him, they questioned every prophet, and they questioned Jesus. But somehow we get questioned and we get defensive when we're in these positions of leadership, when we should give people answers.
That's right. So, you hear a lot of talk about repealing the Law Enforcement Office Bill of Rights. What are your thoughts, and what is needed?
Yeah, we do need to change the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. First of all, police officers, and this is my major problem with the fraternal police or order police. And you got to remember, I was a police officer. I was with the FBI. I was part of that so-called fraternity, but not a part of the fraternity order police. You join the police department, and then you become a member of the FOP. What the FOP seem to believe is people join the FOP, and they happen to be a member of the police department. That's not the order of things. So your first mission is to protect and serve. Your second mission is to worry about the rights of police officers. Your first mission, the reason you join the police department, the reason you go into the agency is to become a police officer, to protect and serve. And if that's not your mission, then you shouldn't be protected by the FOP or anyone else. You should be removed from the people's presence. Think about this. You can become a police officer in the state of Maryland at 21 years of age. Think about this. At 21 years of age, you can have the legal authority to remove another human being from existence based on your discretion and your judgment. It's an extremely powerful position to give someone. Secondly, Harvard University and the other universities have said that the marrow of a mind does not even come to complete fruition until the age of 26. So at 21, I'm giving someone without a full brain a weapon and the authority to remove another human being from existence. I can do that, but if I do that, my training has got to be tight and right. My vetting process, my hiring, and my recruiting, because I have to hire mature individuals that, despite the fact that their brain is not fully developed at 21, are already prepared to do great things and handle all that power and authority, and that I can train them in that particular position. According to the university, female brain matures at 22. We don't even hire enough female police officers, not to mention enough African-American police officers. The officers we are hiring are officers whose brains are not fully developed, who have been socialized to be racist and to deal with racism, who have been socialized to see us as an enemy. Now, I may hire them, but I need to fix them in that academy. And I can't have my academy at Pimlico Middle School up on Park Heights Avenue. I need a state-of-the-art of academy like the Ravens training facility if I'm going to take people, give them the power to remove another human being from a thought, from existence. If I'm going to do that kind of powerful piece, if I'm going to actually reduce crime, to protect and serve, then I better make sure their training facilities are right. They're talking about moving down to the University of Baltimore, but where are they going to physically work out? They're going to run around the Inner Harbor? They need a place where, because I'm giving you that much power, I'm giving you that much preparation. Mental health preparation, right?
Yeah.
I need some
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
mental health issues, so they don't beat somebody to death because they're angry or they're experiencing anxiety or they're having some problem in their personal lives.
Just to jump in for a second, I think that they need to go through something on a yearly basis with a mental health therapist, because even if you're talking about not killing someone, but seeing all of that death could do something to your mental psyche as well. So just to have somebody to talk to kind of release some of those things that you're that you're seeing and you're hearing on a day-to-day. It's almost like if you sort of like watch a lot of like wrestling or something, and after you finish watching wrestling, you kind of like real pumped up, and if something happened, you might be liable to just snap right then, because you just got finished seeing all of that. So these police officers, I don't think we give enough of them credit, because the majority of them are doing what they need to do and are hired, and doing a good job. But they have so much going on, so much built up. We need to allow them to be able to release that in a effective and a conducive way that will help them to deal with. And instead of waiting until 15 years later and they got all of this stuff built up, hurt people. They have all of this stuff built up, and then what's going to happen?
Right. And I think to kind of echo both of your sentiments, having the proper training. I think Dr. Powell said it, making sure that they are physically trained well, and then also making sure that mentally they are trained well. And I love the fact that you said, Taylor, you're talking about having an ongoing process where they get evaluated to deal with some of the issues that they have to deal with. I think that's vitally important, so they can kind of talk about some things and understand how psychologically what they're seeing in different communities, how it's affecting them. So that way, again, to Dr. Powell's point, that they are properly trained and aware that protecting and serving is their first line of defense. It's the first thing that should kind of be on their minds. Another thing that I think that they should be introduced to in the course of like the evaluations and the coursework is honestly understanding, again, how the community feels. Understand that the community and the people who they are serving, they are seeing murders at an all-time high. They've lost cousins, they've lost sons, daughters, nephews, children, fathers are being lost out of the family. So they have to have an understanding of the communities that they're serving and the deep grief that those people are going through as well. Because then again, hopefully it'll again make them kind of click into that initial, hey, we're here to protect and serve. We have to understand that people are going to make some bad decisions. And yes, there need to be consequences for those decisions, because to your point, Taylor K, again, you're saying that the vast majority of police officers do a great job, do what they're supposed to do. But then you have those rotten apples, and when that's what people are seeing, it sticks in your mind. So we have to make sure that that the community members, that the police officers understand, have a firm understanding of what families are going through, what families are dealing with, so that they can kind of take ownership of it, and that it's like this almost like holistic approach when you talk about having the physical training, having the mental training, having the proper education, and the proper understanding of exactly the communities and populations that they are serving.
And those things can be implemented quickly, and they have to be, because we're in a state of emergency. And think about this: as dire as it sounds regarding the murders in Baltimore City, and it is dire. One murder is horrific, but think about this: if we have 300 murders a year, there are 600 and some thousand people in Baltimore City, which means most people are not murderers, they're not rapists, they're taking care of their children, they're going day to day trying to live their lives and trying to get better, trying to enhance and increase their life chances, trying to develop their children on a regular basis. So there is a population in this city that is hell-bent on creating violence, chaos, and havoc. But the majority of the people are like us. Now, on the other hand, what I say to police officers all the time, whether I'm in Baltimore, I just got back from Philadelphia training police officers there most of last week. What I say to them on a regular basis, the rotten apple syndrome doesn't work anymore. Because if I'm in a barrel for rotten apple, I know he stinks. And I have taken an oath to protect and serve the rights of the people, whether they're in blue jeans or blue, if the offenders are in blue jeans
That's
or in blue
right.
uniforms. So I can't say I'm a good cop, but he's riding. If I smell that he's riding, I've got to do something about that because I don't want to work in an environment with riding apples. Again, using the sports analogy. If I'm on a team and you got a running back and he gained 2 yards this year, I'm going to the coach and say, look, we got to get a new running back. Now, he may not be a bad person, but he damn sure ain't a running back. You feel what I'm saying? So the team concept says that the good police officers have to point out the bad police officers just like they have to point out the bad people. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the blue code of silence, and you mentioned this wonderfully, Nikki, the blue code of silence have allowed too many so-called good police officers to remain silent. And if you are remaining silent, as Dr. Martin Luther King says, at a certain point, silence becomes betrayal. It may be cute, it may be wonderful, but he said, Dr. King said, silence become acquiescence. You accept that behavior of the bad officers, and it become betrayal to the very people you intended to serve. So I would say to the good police officers, you can't really be good if you're letting bad officers do bad things and you know about it. Now, I'm not saying you have to go testify against them, but you better slip someone a note and say, this dude is on cocaine, alcohol, he's shaking down drug dealers, and I don't want to work with him because sooner or later this is going to come back on him. Think about this. The entire gun trace task force unit, everyone in that unit was arrested and sent to prison. There's a young guy in that unit who I taught at Anne Arundel Community College. Beautiful spirit, beautiful guy, beautiful heart. They put him in that unit, and then that unit essentially corrupted him. So if his commander, the head of the unit, went to prison too, if the commander doesn't get rid of the head of the unit, he's going to corrupt even the good out. And that's exactly what happened with the gun trace task force.
Wow.
You had good people who were put into a bad unit and felt like they had to get along because of the mental health issues. Sometimes we go along to get along. We follow our peers, even if it's down a dark alley where we know we're going to get mugged, right? Or put us in a bad situation. And so we have to say to the good officers, you still have a fiduciary responsibility to not only deal with bad people on the street, but deal with people in the precinct. As I told the people in Philadelphia, you cannot be a panther on the street and a punk in the precinct. If you believe in upholding justice, uphold justice everywhere you go. Dr. King said it best. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If I allow bad police officers to do bad things in the precinct, then I'm going to have injustice on the street. I'm going to have chaos. I'm going to have bad police community relations, and I'm not going to be able to solve crime. Last thing, Baltimore City Police Department have about 2,900 officers on the street. They have 600 and some thousand citizens. 2,900 cannot effectively police 600,000 unless the 600,000 want to be policed. You have to have an intimate relationship with the community. The community is your force multipliers. Most people who live in this city do not want rapists, robbers, and murderers on their street. If you have a good relationship with them, you take a 2,900 agent police department and increase it to 300,000 because now the people are with you. So I don't need to add more police officers if I have a good relationship with the people because the people are saying, I'm going after them too. Reuben Greenberg in South Carolina said to his officers, whenever you make an arrest, after you have it under control, turn around and tell the people why you made the arrest. If you tell the people I'm arresting him because he's chested a child molester, they'll say, thank you, officer. If you tell the people none of your business, back up, get away, they'll think you're doing something wrong. If you're making a good, solid arrest for the protection of the people, tell the people and you'll gain some fans. It's like throwing a touchdown in a game. The people will cheer you. If you always tell the people I made an arrest, now get away from me, it's none of your business, then the people will think you're up to something. Tell the people what you're doing and you multiply your force. You have more people telling you what's going on, more people identifying the bad guys, and you have an immediate reduction in crime and murders in this particular city. You're not going to do it with 2,900 people trying to police 600,000 people. Doesn't make any sense. It's not mathematically correct. It doesn't make sense from a mental, psychological, sociological aspect, and that's what we've been doing for all too long, and the leadership have allowed that.
And it goes back to what Sananda was saying, was building that relationship. Once you have that relationship with the communities, they're going to call you up and be like, such and such happened.
That's exactly right.
They, you know, building that relationship will change things, but it takes the officers to handle things appropriately
That's
also.
exactly right.
Case
People are
in,
afraid of both the cops and the robbers now.
so one of my family members live in Latrobe Homes, and apparently a fight broke out. She was trying to get this grown woman off of this young lady, and because she tried because she tried to get this grown woman off of this young lady, a group of people came to attack her. So when I got the phone call to come help, you know, I went there as fast as I could, but it was over. And so we're on the phone with the police department. She said, I asked the police to send the sergeant. Um, and so I'm talking to a sergeant. She's talking to the sergeant on the phone. He kept asking her, well, who was your assaultant's name? And so she was getting frustrated. It took her from, I got her down to 0 to call them to say, just call and get the sergeant to come out again. You know, let's just call and try to get the sergeant to come out. It took her from 0 to 100 again because of the questions they're asking. Do we always know who assaulted us? Do we know their name? Now, this sergeant on the phone is saying he's been on the force for 27 years, but you've asked her 3 times who the person was that attacked her.
Right.
And then he asked her some other questions that were just like you're getting her upset all over
Almost like
again.
immediately triggering.
Instead of you understanding and saying, Miss, I understand what's going on. Let me see how I can get a sergeant to come out and help you, because clearly something went on and you're requesting a sergeant for the 3rd time and no sergeant has come out.
Right.
And so I bring that up because I had to get on the phone with this sergeant because I thought, well, maybe she's giving off some kind of vibe as she's talking to him, you know, because she's upset, you know, and maybe he's kind of pushing her off, because we do that sometimes if somebody is, you know, on a level 100, you know, you kind of close your ears sometimes to what they have to say. So I pick up the phone and I'm trying to, you know, articulate with this guy like what happened and why she wants the sergeant, because she felt like the police didn't do what they were supposed to do. They told her the sergeant would be there in 15 minutes. The sergeant never came. We called again. They said the sergeant was on his way. The sergeant never came. I left maybe around 2:30. No sergeant. I called her first thing in the morning. Did the sergeant ever come? No, no sergeant. So we had to like place another call to get a family member to make a call to even get somebody to give her a police report of what happened. So sometimes it's not necessarily it's how the police handle what's going on, because he clearly escalated her after I got her, and she takes medicine, and I got her to be able to calm down, and then he took her back up to 100 because of the way he was just badgering her with the questions. And instead of her being the victim, it was more like she was the attacker. And so I just think that the police have to do a better job in training our officers and explaining, like, you don't know if this person has a mental health issue.
That's true.
You don't know. When you're dealing with them, you don't know if they have a mental health issue. So therefore, you should almost treat everybody as if they do, so that you won't escalate a situation. And you know, so sometimes we see the tail end of things and we don't know what transpired ahead of time. But like if that police officer was standing right in front of her, I couldn't tell you that she might not have tried to hit that police officer with the way his line of questioning and frustration and not trying to show empathy to her during her time of just, you know, being attacked by all of these people. So I just say that to say you know, we have to do a better job. At the end of the day, we got to do a better job of who we hire, holding them accountable. Everything that we said for politicians, same thing for the police. You know, they are not above the law, period.
And who we put in positions of power?
So
First line
we talked a lot about that. I guess we'll go to my next question, which Violence seemed to consistently plague Baltimore. What can be done to actually and sustainably drive down crime? We kind of touched on some things, but either one of you guys can weigh in.
I've talked a lot, so I'm
Well, we look. I love hearing you talk, Dr. Powers. You and Taylor K. Like y'all are amazing. I'm just being fed today. This is amazing. But again, I think it goes back to bring down violence. I think it goes back to relationships. I know that the reality of the matter is there is a level of fear that sometimes is in our community. I know that there is a level of, there's obviously a huge level of frustration within our communities, but I think that if we push to fortify our relationships, I can't say that enough, and I'm talking about whether it's between neighbors just knowing one another, getting to know one another. We're at a point where just saying hi to each other, people struggle with that. Just saying good morning, just saying good afternoon. Again, building small relationships that can potentially blossom into other things. Because I remember back in the day when you could ask your neighbor to make sure you take a look at my house, make sure nothing happens to it while I'm out on vacation, things of that nature. I don't know if that happens as much anymore. So relationships, making sure we have those within the community, making sure that, again, we haven't really touched on like education and schools and things of that nature, but I think that's another place where we can fortify the understandings of community, making sure that while we are in schools, parents do what they can to be a part of the school, of the fabric of the school, understanding that having that good relationship with teachers, making sure that teachers don't just see us during PTA meetings and things of that nature, but again, just fortifying relationships. Because again, if I know your brother or I know your cousin and I have a relationship with your brother, your cousin, your sister, that would probably give me pause when I'm thinking about committing a violent act. And the reality of the matter is there are some people who are just going to do it for whatever reason they see fit. But if we fortify relationships, I think that's an important part. And then again, do the same thing with police officers. Make sure that police officers are knowledgeable about their communities, make sure that they know the people who are in the communities, make sure that they're empathetic. That word empathy is very, very big when they have to deal with situations. But again, relationships. It's because I don't think that there's one way to bring down violence. I think that the police is necessary to have police, it's necessary to have consequences. But again, with community, we have to make sure that we are kind of policing ourselves, making sure that we're making wise choices within our families, making sure that I have to make sure that my 9-year-old and my 11-year-old are making wise decisions, whether it's crossing the street, whether it's in dealings with others. Picking friends wisely is so much to it, but I think relationships is the foundation that bringing down violence starts with. Knowing one another, respecting one another, and doing what we can to kind of bring that to curb that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that the three areas I think is obviously prevention, intervention, and then response. First of all, our schools have got to get better. We can't keep having CEOs. We can't keep miseducating young people, taking away their opportunities. Because even if you increase the graduation rate, if you don't increase the education rate, then the graduates can't go anywhere. And that even causes them more frustration because somehow they've been taught that my graduation should lead to a position and I should be able to advance. And then when you get your graduation and you haven't been educated, you become more of a mental health issue because now you're even more frustrated. If education didn't work and I have my diploma, if that didn't work, then I might as well find some other means, which some of them resort to violence, to alcohol, to drugs, and the alcohol and drugs also leads you to violence. So we can't keep having CEOs of the school system and not have a better school system from kindergarten all the way through. In classrooms in high school, we already know that some of the classrooms are too full, especially with the mental health issues and the other issues, the poverty issues, for one teacher to deal with. We've got to give them an aide in the classroom so they can concentrate on teaching and the aide can concentrate on some of the other issues that need to be taken care of. You got to reduce the poverty rate, and that's part of it is education and opportunity. The city owns the Hilton Hotel downtown. I've never understood this. How come you cannot immediately place some of these young people, start preparing them in high school for positions there? There are hotels, you can run the fitness center right away. You can handle Marion Barry in Washington, D.C. Wanted to help young people become entrepreneurs. So he told new hotels that moved into Washington, D.C. that you can have the space, that we'll negotiate the land and all, but you have to give the contract to clean the sheets to some of the young people. Can you imagine how you can become a millionaire just with the contract to clean sheets at the Hilton or the Marriott? So once they have those opportunities, because you can make a lot more money doing that than you can as a squeegee kid or selling crack cocaine. But we have to develop those opportunities and put them in place to give young people options. If I give you better education, better opportunities, reduce poverty, deal with the systemic racism issues, and then you still commit crime, then as you mentioned, then you got to deal with the consequences, because there's some people who are going to have to be dealt with. Let's face it. We cannot be so liberal that we don't understand someone who go out and kill or rape someone has got to go away. We've got to be removed. We got to remove them from the rest of society so that a young person at 7 or 8 are not hit by a stray bullet. I want to help you, but I can't help you kill other people in the means of helping you. So I'm going to give you all the things,
let's stop
give
there
you
for
an
a
option, and then I'm going to
second.
give you the consequences for not taking them.
You said you want to help them, but that's one of the problems I believe with our jail systems. What is jail for? To rehabilitate. What does jail do? The opposite. Do they really rehabilitate? Do they really use the so a lot of times we have all of these different programs set up to help individuals, but then the programs get started and people have good intentions, and these programs are running, and 10 years later it starts to get watered down. 15 years later is even more watered down, and then by the 20th year the program is not effectively helping the population it was set up to help. Are we really rehabilitating so that somebody who may have committed a crime, especially one of our young ones that may have committed that crime when they were 18, when they're ready to come back out as 28 or 38 years old, do we have them ready to be on back out in our communities, or are we setting them up for failure?
Yeah, the prisons have almost become the philosophy of prisons makes sense. Penitentiary came from the word penitence, which means to repent, to change your ways. Jessup is the house of corrections, but they're not designed for that anymore. And while some programs start with good intentions, some of those intentions are the profit of the people who start the program. So after the profit is gone, the program going to be watered down. If you have an intention of helping people, you always going to help people to the day you leave this earth, like Mr. Lewis just did, like Martin Luther King did, like Malcolm X did. So it may sound like good intentions, but is the good intentions to line your pockets, or is your intentions to change people's lives? Because I'm not saying you shouldn't get paid, but if one is a priority over the other, when the money run out, your intentions run out. So we have to understand that the programs sound good, but we got to make sure that people have good intentions. And secondly, you're right. That's the population that suffers from benign neglect of those in correctional institutes. And since most of those people who are in correctional institutes return to the communities in which they come from, if they're not changed in those places, they're going to come back either worse or certainly no better. I always say we don't need to necessarily rehabilitate them. We need to habilitate them, because rehabilitate means to return you to your previous condition, and your previous condition is what got you locked up in the first place.
Right.
We actually need to build you from the bottom up, and the programs have to be designed to do that, not to rehabilitate, but to bring you from where you are to where you need to be, not to where you were before, because where you were before got you there in the first place. And so the programs that we allow into prisons have to be vetted to make sure they're designed to do that. We have to create a prison environment that is conducive for learning. And secondly, there has to be an intimate relationship for the people on this side of the wall and the people on that side of the wall. We separate the two, not understanding that the people, if we're addressing all the problems of the people who are in free society and not the people who are on that side of the wall, understand those people are coming back. Unless they got a life sentence or a death penalty, which you don't have in Maryland, they're coming back. So you have to use equal resources. If I'm the police commissioner of Baltimore City, I am working closely with the person that had corrections, because I know that whatever our police is not only here, but what's coming here through parole, probation, or just finishing out their sentences. So I have to already have a great relationship. I'm the commissioner. I need to talk to the head of corrections. I need to know who's coming back. I need to know if they've been made better, how they've been made better, because the programs I design over here will be based on what they got or didn't get when they were there. My mental health programs over here will have to be connected to what mental health that they received or didn't receive over here. They're not separated. That wall that we think separate us from them, they're coming back. So we need to make sure all of that is taken care of. And all too often, when we hear people talk about crime reduction, they talk about people on this side of the wall, not the people who are heading back that you mentioned, Nikki, that have to be dealt with programs that are sustainable because the purpose and the passion is there, not just the profit.
And one thing, just to chime in really quickly, Dr. Powers, that you mentioned, I love the fact that you talked about taking preventative measures. And I think if I had like this kind of pie in the sky, if I could kind of just shift things, I think that you spoke about schools just being revamped and changed to make sure that young people are able to lock into things that interest them at an earlier age. Because if you have young people and you're kind of pushing them through academically, and they might be looking forward to college, but the reality of the matter is either A, they're not academically ready to take that route, or there's no interest there, then that means that we have to make sure that we're not just exposing them to certain things. I think that's important, but that they experience different things that they can gravitate toward and that they can have a love for. Because then once they're able to kind of get that passion, then maybe potentially, like you said, that'll be what prevents them from having to go the route of rehabilitation, of going into prison systems and things of that nature. Young people need to be kind of exposed to things. I always talk about if I was able to change schools around, you would have maybe elementary schoolers going to school at 8 o'clock, and maybe middle schoolers going to school at 9 o'clock, and high schoolers going to school at maybe 10 o'clock, because we already know we're angry at our young people for getting to school late. But we know that those older young people are taking their little brothers and sisters to school. So now they miss first period class. So maybe we need to revamp the way the school system works. And that'll help take the preventative measures, because now our young people have a vested interest in their learning process. To your point, Dr. Powers, I was a success coach in a program that worked with young people graduating high school. They get free job training and information technology and things of that nature. But the reality of the matter is some of them just were not academically affluent enough to deal with it. They literally looked and said, I haven't done homework since 5th grade. You telling me I got to go do homework now? Right. So it's like, oh my goodness, like the programs are there, but the programs have to be revitalized, and they have to take into account where our children are so that we can make sure that they get the things that they need to be as successful as possible.
And your organization, Nikki, is a prime example. The organization for which this program, the foundation for which this program is built on. I mean, that's another group that we neglect tremendously, our young women. I mean, we neglect them tremendously. If you look at, when we talk about even corrections in prisons, most of the time we're discussing prisons that house men. We're not talking about juvenile institution for young girls and young women. That's completely off the radar screen. Most of our conversations are about how we're going to deal with young men, understanding that we can't be separated, and whatever happens to one side happens to the other side. What happened to male and the female? Your organization, the entrepreneurship, trying to support people who want to go into business, who have great ideas, but need a group of women to work with to help them understand how to navigate that. It's part of the solution. So not only is what you're doing great, and what the foundation of this program is, or your perseverance. You've been in this platform for 3 years. You don't really care whether how many people or how many people not. You know, eventually it's going to get to where you want. Teaching people that kind of perseverance, that you're not going to start where you end, and there's going to be some bumps in the road, but you never give up. You keep going out and grabbing and bringing more people in and say you have to be here. When you invited me on the program, it was a request, requirement, demand, and a hostage taking situation. And I was going to be on the program, or you were going to find me wherever I was, talking about my family, find my family members, threaten me. Once the cat or the dog, but I was going to be here. But that kind of perseverance and determination is demonstrated in what you've done in your organization. So I think we ought to applaud you, the organization, and this particular platform that you're on for your perseverance. And it is an example to other young ladies of how to continue and how to be a part of this. Young ladies in elementary school, in middle school, and high school, and those in business. Because as you reach out to your fellow entrepreneurs, you're reaching out to their daughters too, and their sons, and so on and so forth.
And Dr. Powers, I'm sorry. I just wanted to also echo your sentiments with regard to, we talked about media and the power of media. And again, this platform that you have is just that. It's giving people a voice, giving people that look like them, look like us a voice, look like the young women who you work with a voice. And that is powerful and impactful. So being able to take control of media is important as well. Kudos.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on Empowered Women in Business International. We pride ourselves with spotlighting people that are moving and shaking in the community. As you know, Sananda received a Women in Business International Award back in last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then your daughter received one too, Dr. Power. So that's
Yeah, I remember. I was with you then.
like people that are doing good in our
That's
community.
excellent. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
You, Nick.
we did have some comments that I did want to tap on real quick. Kelly Bay said, Kelly Bay Borton said, "Good evening, loves." So true. And she said, "Awesome, gentlemen." And Joanne Page said hi. And Siobhan said, "Laugh out loud" at some point. Menina said, "Good evening, kings and queens." Good evening. And she said, "Powerful." So something we said was powerful. Typically, our as we go along, I'll share what they're saying. But the conversation was so good that I just let it ride tonight. So I thank both of you for coming on, and we'll have to finish because we didn't get through all my questions. I'm not even halfway through.
But we didn't want to get through those other questions.
we
So we decided, we made a pact and decided we were gonna, we were gonna make sure that we got what we wanted.
That's right. Dr. Powers, you said it. No surprises. No surprises.
If you get into the what isn't it true questions, they were coming up next.
That's right.
Only 5 of them.
Okay.
So, thank you both for
thank you for the opportunity
for being on, and we're going to go to our announcement quickly before we close out. So Jay, if you could put up our first flyer. All right, so Legacy Book Bar is having its book club meeting on July 25th from 12 to 3 p.m. And I was told that the author will be on the call. The living and legend I'm sorry, the living and I'm sorry, the life and legacy of Lear Green by Samora Miller. The Life and Legacy of Lear Green by Miss Miller. So if you would like to join that book club meeting, you can visit www.legacybookbar.com. We can have the next one, Jay. The trauma training date is August the 8th, 2020 from 9 to 1 p.m. 1600 North Chester Street, Baltimore, Maryland 21213. They will be practicing social distancing, wearing their face masks, and you can contact Reverend Dr. Andre Humphrey at 443-418-8898 if you would like to volunteer for the trauma training and the trauma team. And we can go to the next one, Jay. Hug Don't Shoot and the Housewives of Baltimore will host a cleanup in Baltimore July 25th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. To volunteer or for more information, please contact Val at 443-5982 Val, 443-598-2825. Or you can visit www.hugdon'tshoot.org. And for Lady T from the Housewives of Baltimore, you can reach her at 410-800-2671 or visit their website, which is listed also. And then you can go back to the EWBI flyer, Jay. So again, we just thank each and everybody for tuning in this evening. We want to thank our sponsor, which is Smooth Flicks Banquet Hall. And if anyone is interested in joining Empowered Women in Business International, there's some information. You can visit us on our website at www.ewbiradio.org, or you can dial 443-379-4404 for more information. And last but not least, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in again tonight. Don't forget to keep it locked here next Tuesday at 8:05 for Empowered Women in Business International Radio. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening. Individually, we can do great things, but collectively, we can forever change the world by Nick Mosby. Good night.
Good night.
Not all.